part of their website. And I say was because we've got some updating for you tonight. So this is on the, as we talked about, I think Nancy, right, on Monday?
Yeah, I think I found it on Sunday, and I sent the email to Dr. Gold on Sunday night, and Dr. Davis, the chairperson of UNC Peds. Dr. Gold is the vice chair or chair of the Diversity and Equity Committee for the Pediatric Department. Apparently, I'm learning each department has a diversity and equity, because it's not enough to just have one for like the entire school of medicine. You have to have one in each department. So psychiatry has one, surgery has one, medicine has one, peds has one. You know, every department of medicine has one.
Okay, so they all have one. And so we're talking about UNC. UNC is a very, very big system, you guys. And I think now more than ever, this rings true, is that North Carolina is a state of education and medication, right? We've got tons of medical schools. I think we're one of the, if not besides Massachusetts, one of the largest states in terms of medical schools in the country. We have a very big pediatric program. In other words, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're the trendsetter, and really in all the wrong ways here. We've had, I mean, you know, critical race theory. We've been on the cutting edge of that. Transgenderism in North Carolina. Everyone thinks that North Carolina is such a conservative state. Absolutely not true. We are the bluest red state in the union. We're really trailblazing here, like I said, in all the wrong ways. So tonight's conversation is going to be relegated just to UNC. Nancy's going to give you her background in a second. She is, of course, a surgeon. And I spent 10 years working in surgery. So orthopedics, neurosurgery, inside of the OR, working with not only residents, but attendings all the way from North Carolina up to really Canada, and spent 10 years doing that. So I've seen maybe north of 1,000 surgeries. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is how this goes from pediatrics to getting into medical school to getting into surgery. So let's back up. Nancy, you saw this on Sunday. You and I were texting about this, and I sort of halfway didn't believe you. I mean, I believe you, but it's just until you see this, it's so preposterous. So Epic Times wrote about kind of what happened between, you know, now or Sunday and now. Go ahead and tell us. You wrote.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've known, having been in the medical field, although I'm a stay-at-home mom now, that medicine has been going very woke. You know, I've still seen some journal articles and all of that stuff that I can't believe, you know, exist.
Seeing it a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, even with respect to vaccinations, all these things.
Yeah. I mean, even not even getting into COVID, like before COVID with the racism and all of that. And there are doctors fighting it, and it's not every doctor for sure. And a lot of doctors are afraid to speak up, which I think is a real problem. If in the medical field you can't speak about this stuff, that's, you know, then you got to really worry. So yeah, on Sunday, I happened to come across this doing some research. I came across the gingerbread person graphic, which I'd already known about from prior research into the unicorn, the flying gender unicorn. I knew the gingerbread graphic comes from a social justice comedian activist website, Sam Kellerman. I knew it was not.
Seeing this in kindergarten. So we saw this in Moore County. So if you think it's just Mecklenburg and Wake.
No. I know one of the reasons why the gender unicorn was created was because that activist group felt that the gingerbread man looked too much like a man, or, you know, didn't reflect the binary as well as it could for some reason. So that's how ridiculous this is. It's not a physician who came up with it. It's a completely social justice caricature of their activism. So to make it a main feature of the diversity and equity website as a medical resource, I found very egregious. And then there was another section of for the Department of Pediatrics. There was another section in the Department of Pediatrics diversity website regarding the tenure situation for Hannah Nicole Jones, but went even beyond that, because they said So a bunch of attendings got together and wrote a letter or something about, her tenure situation, whatever. But they also wrote a statement on the front page of their website that said Hannah Nicole Jones is the model for future generations. And for pediatric physicians to come together and say that on a state public website.
Let's talk about who. I totally agree. So Hannah Nicole Jones wrote.
Hannah Jones, sorry.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter. She wrote a piece of fiction that is known as the 1619 Project. And she went on to work with the New York Times. The thing is that the New York Times had to retract support for this piece of fiction because it was, as you can imagine, riddled with historical inaccuracies. I mean, blatant ones. And yet, predictably, it won a Pulitzer Prize. And it is critical race theory. So what it is that. So in effect, we've been telling you guys, critical race theory is comprised of two things now we're seeing in school. Transgenderism, okay, always. And then critical race theory, or the underpinning of CRT is that white supremacy, every institution's white supremacist, okay? And that, people of color are still being held down. So you'll know when you're in the midst of a Marxist revolution for this reason. When there is institutionalized revolutionary zeal, that is when you know that you're in the midst of a revolution. It has been that way from time immemorial, and we're here now. Nancy, this is more evidence.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely evidence, and it absolutely is critical race theory and intersectionality 100%, even if they don't say it directly on their website. Tenets of critical race theory include the fact that America is built on systemic racism, that the institutions were formed specifically to oppress people of color and keep white people in power. So anytime you hear the systemic racism stuff, that's code words for critical race theory or a bastardized form of critical race theory. Also, the fact that, the lived experiences is important because statistics as well and numbers are also based in white supremacy and racism. So you have to take into account people's lived experiences in order to take into account people of color, because statistics don't necessarily do that, since they were invented through a systemically racist society. And that's why there's such a emphasis on this concept of implicit bias as well, which you'll see again in UNC, the medical website, implicit bias, implicit bias, implicit bias, but they don't show any evidence or any research that shows the problem with implicit bias. And that's my issue with it. There's no two sides of this debate.
Right. So exactly. So we're going to go through some things that you have discovered, and this is going to scare the living SH out of you, because it did to me this afternoon when I heard about this. This is, again, I believe it's the largest healthcare system in North Carolina. All right. So anytime you're going to go do your checkup or whatever, do your homework, people. This is, explain to me what we're looking at.
So this is a link, UNC School of Medicine, Allied Health Sciences. And I'm not entirely sure Allied Health Sciences might be like the occupational
nursing and dental hygienist. And
yeah. But it's still under the School of Medicine, and the other departments like Department of Pediatrics, Department of Medicine, Department of Surgery, they all link to these resources officially. So even though it's under Allied Health Sciences and not Department of Surgery per se, or Department of Pediatrics, those link specifically to this. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a resource for all of them.
Okay. All right. So just when you see dismantling racism,
yes,
ding, ding, that is critical race theory. So it's very, it's great. I mean, this is horrific, by the way, but it's great that we're going over this now, because next week, or maybe after the holidays, we're going to get into the psychiatry program inside of the schools that everybody thinks is so wonderful. It uses critical race theory. Yeah, so we've been leading. Yeah, I mean, we've been leading up to that for the last 8 weeks. We've been telling you guys it's here, it's inside of the schools, etc. It's critical race theory that they're using as a means to treat children for behavioral issues. This is the same thing we're seeing here is this dismantle racism. And I'm going to get a few more of them up, Nancy.
Yeah, I think the JEDI stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, or something like that.
You know what's the JEDI trick, Nancy? Is not getting your ass suit off when a patient sees this crap on the website, right? I'm telling you, people are looking for reasons to sue. And all they need is to see this, and they're going to say, hey, or actually, unfortunately, maybe they did get messed up, right, by someone who was racist. I mean, we gotta say it, right? If you got this stuff on the website, tell us what we're looking at here, because it smacks of Orange County to me.
I don't honestly. This is part that. So they have something called the JEDI Toolkit. It's JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, which I think is what it stands for. And they have all sorts of resources under this toolkit. This is one of them, and they go into the history of this one particular flag. I don't pay much attention to the different flags. And I think one time I Googled them and there were like 40 of them, which is just insane. But I don't understand why this is a specific, I don't understand why this is on a UNC medicine website. This is a symbol that someone decided would represent a certain section of people. Okay. Like, so how does this have to do with anything, really? I guess you can't say anything because you'll be labeled an ick.
That's what Joe just said. Well, you damn right can say something, because I'm here to tell you there are two genders, period, end of discussion. And as much as, and you're going to see that in a second, as much as, UNC Health would rather you not focus on that, we believe science around here, right? I mean, and we talked about this being political. I don't know if it's political, but it's decidedly anti-science. It's anti-science.
Well, plus by elevating any one group, I mean, who decided that this flag was represent? I mean, is it really representative of everyone? I guess I just don't understand the emphasis of this. I don't understand. I don't really get it. I mean, well, so if they put that flag on, then is another group of people going to be upset that that the trans flag isn't on there or something? Or
another Confederate flag.
There are like 40 different flags for these things. Like, I mean, what are we doing, people, at this point? Really? Like, I don't.
Well, we're in a moment here in this country. I think we all know it. It's collective psychosis. So I wrote a piece today. Just to it kind of comports with what we're saying. Wake County Public Libraries came out last night and said, hey, we reviewed the gender queer book, which was in the adult section of our library, and we decided it's inappropriate. Okay. Yeah, we knew that, number one. And then number two, we see Wake County saying, you know what, these books are fine here. School board's doing nothing, etc. Orange County Public Schools, they've reviewed the books and said this is hunky-dory for children. And it's just what it is that they're doing it deliberately to piss people off. Anyone that's complaining about it, it's just putting a thumb in their eye. Now, they're doing that in schools. If they're going to try that in medicine, again, institutionalized revolutionary zeal. We're in that moment. And so
then the internet warriors take this and use it out of medical context. Not that flag is particularly medical context, but it gives it more gravitas, per se, for other people. Teachers say, oh, well, I can hang UNC medicine. This is, so it's right. Taking the underlying medical issues and exaggerating them to a point where they're no longer really factual, and then saying, but UNC medicine has it. So the kids need to learn this, and UNC.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's a problem.
That's interesting, because your strongest argument about the gingerbread person or the unicorn or whatever we've been arguing was that this has no medical credence and you're teaching it in a science class. This is we're not going to let them get away with it. It's trying to undermine that the argument, right, that this has no credence. And you can see that they're making it a public health issue. Dr. Amy, going to try in medicine's already happening. Too many articles. Well, Amy, we're going to show you a couple of screenshots that's going to blow your doors off. Again, if you're thinking about going to UNC, I'd give it a heavy dose of second thought.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
sad.
Yeah, we won't be going there. Good, Leanne. I mean, now more than ever, we have to do our homework. We really have to do our homework on this.
Yeah, I fired my pediatricians last year too because of their posts.
You really have to. I mean, now we're living in an era of due diligence. I sat next to a parent last night at our basketball game, and she said, "Wow, we're so many people are thinking about putting their kids back into public school." And I looked at her. I'm like, "You'd be a damn fool to do that." And I talked to her about all the pornography going on, et cetera. And she says, "Well, I guess the rationale is they're going to see it anyway."
Yeah.
So look, again, you have. And it's I don't know that it's a minority. You've got parents that are like, well, whatever. No, I mean, your job is to do the due diligence for your children to keep them safe, because you know that now pediatricians aren't going to be committed to it like they used to be. School officials are not going to be committed. So again, age of due diligence. I'm going to show someone more of these screens. But Nancy, the important thing is, you raised hell. It made a difference. What happened at UNC?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, so on Sunday, I emailed Dr. Davis, and then I also the chairperson of Department of Pediatrics. So I don't know how involved she is with this DEI stuff, but I also emailed Dr. Stuart Gold, who's the chairperson of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Departments of Peds, and I pointed out, the stuff on this website is highly controversial, and I've had experience with it in kids' school, and how exactly are you representing the entire state by only putting on things that represent very divisive concepts, and especially the Hannah Nicole Jones thing. And I pointed out that she was proud that the $2 billion worth of damage in 2020 and the 30 lives lost were called the 1619 riots. And I said, how dare you suggest that for everyone? I mean, maybe for some people, okay, she's a model of future generations, whatever. But how dare you, as a UNC state institution, under the guise of pediatrics, say that she's a model for future generations? That's unacceptable. My mind, you can do it when you're outside UNC, on your own social media site or whatever. Or if you're in private practice and you want to build a private practice on saying Nicole Hannah and do the work and not use taxpayer funds, but do all the marketing and all that stuff yourself, go for it. And then base your practice on Nicole Hannah Jones. I could care less. But in a state institution that's supposed to represent the entire state. And by the way, they should be busy doing pediatrics.
Right.
No offense.
Aren't we to believe that they have a crap ton of patients because of the Omicron or or whatever the hell? Are we not supposed to believe that now, that they're able to dabble into knowing and being able, to your point, to differentiate between the various flags?
Yeah.
I mean, this is
flags and variants.
But again, you want to double up also. I'd advise UNC, if you're listening, do double up on your malpractice insurance, because you're going to need it. Any parent that, I'm telling you, any parent that would see that and then just think that their child was being treated differently.
Yeah.
That's a damn lawsuit.
He did email back. I was kind of surprised. It wasn't much of an answer, though, and it was the usual kind of, oh, we'll talk about it at our next committee meeting, and this isn't supposed to be political, but I guess some people might see it as such. And, and I think we have a disclaimer that says not everyone feels this way. And I was just very upset. And I'm like, no, not the next committee meeting. And so I wrote back and I basically said that wasn't good enough and some other things. And then the next morning I decided, on Monday morning, I decided, since I know now kind of a little bit more about the legislature and what goes on politically, I decided to look up the university committee, because this is a taxpayer funded university. And apparently they feel like they can just get to it whenever they get to it, at the next diversity committee meeting. I was like, that's not enough. So I emailed the whole university committee at the House level, the standing committee, and CC'd Dr. Gold and Dr. Davis. And I said, this stuff is going on at UNC. Why are these websites on here about Nicole Hannah Jones? And why are we spending state money on this? And aren't they supposed to be physicians for the state, and why are they using the state in the framework of UNC and to push their own political positions or their own controversial opinions that have nothing to do with medicine and other people. And by the way, don't you dare tell me this isn't political, because there's no statement on there decrying Jussie Smollett's fake crime hoax.
Good point.
And there's no press release about the racial hatred motivated mass murder in Waukesha that killed a little boy. So, you know, they're cherry picking things, and I don't appreciate it. And I did it mostly to get their attention, Dr. Gold and Dr. Davis, to say, I'm not playing. I'm not just going to email you and forget about it. I'm serious. And, you know, not a lot of doctors necessarily know the whole legislative thing. They might, but I don't know. So that got their attention. And then later that afternoon, Monday afternoon, I checked back. I was going to email the links of the websites to someone, and they weren't there anymore. And I was like, what? But no one got in touch with me. I had offered to meet with them. I'd put my phone number, you know, I said, please talk to me. I have lots of resources. I'm happy to talk to you about this concern and why I'm concerned and what the problem is here. And there was radio silence. They just tried to hide it and take it down, is how I interpreted that. So I sent an email back to the legislature, including the doctors, and saying, hey, just so you know, if you try to click on those links now, they're not going to work, even though no one told me that they were pulled down. And I still think this is a huge problem because there's so many other things that weren't addressed, and I don't know what this is going to be like going forward. So basically, I tried to let the diversity committee of UNC know that this, just trying to hide it, is not going to work. People are smarter than that.
Yeah,
but I'm right to them down. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean they aren't going to keep doing the same stuff.
We're going to keep an eye on them. I mean, Jerry, you're right. I mean, 1619 is a joke. It's a joke in the literary world. It's just a joke. I mean, it's something that, you know, people want to offer and hold themselves up as, you know, really thinking people. And, you know, this is great. And this is CRT, but it's a bunch of bull. I mean, I
read it. And I read it so I could say that I read it. And also I tried to go in it objectively and be like, okay, what is this about? Yeah. And even for what she was trying to do, it wasn't really good. It was basically like, these events happen, and some of them have been suppressed. There's no doubt about that. But the problem is then she used it to justify completely progressive policies.
Oh, yeah.
It was a political take on history in order to justify things like reparations and universal health care and all this stuff. But there was no logic in between. It was like, slavery happened, or this event happened that wasn't fair or wasn't ethical. Therefore, we need this. And there was no really continuous sense of logic on top of all of the facts that were blatantly incorrect that she tried to pose as correct, and then they took it down and all that stuff.
Yeah, Leanne.
So even if you say that 1619 in my mind was good in that it brought up aspects of history that have been suppressed, her logic, there's no logic there. There's the reasoning skills were not there. I would have given it like a D. Well,
yeah, I mean, UNC, God love you for reading it. I don't have the time. UNC is a very, very anti-Semitic place as well. And they've been dedicated to even bringing in anti-Semitism into healthcare. And I knew that, Amy, you knew that also several years ago. So I thought, you know what, if you're going to bring in open discrimination and hatred towards one type of people, you know what I mean? I mean, that opens it up for this kind of stuff and this hatred of pretty much all people. Now, a lot, like I said, a lot of people, a lot of white people, they go for this stuff. They like it. They think it's fine. But again, we have to be especially even-handed when it comes to healthcare. So I'm going to put up some things and it's so interesting. You spotted this right away, Nancy, because we've been doing this and they're doing this crap in our schools now. Okay. This is really scary. This is the
surgery department website for residents. Education. You see education and training on the left side of the slide and the diversity, equity, inclusion portion. So this is talking about residency. So you're a doctor, you're a physician, you graduate medical school, and now you're going to train as a surgeon and go through the residency training program. Right. And so the problem here is I saw that if you scroll down to, holistic review, that top bullet point, holistic review of all applicants in an effort to de-emphasize standardized test scores such as the USMLE beginning in 2015. So the USMLE is the United States Medical Licensing Exam. It's 3 parts. You have to finish and pass all 3 parts by the time you get your license or to apply for your medical license. Part 1 has been traditionally the key factor in getting the residency of your choice, and especially competitive residencies. So you have to score really well if you want to get into a competitive or to be considered for a competitive residency. Obviously, there were other things like essays and your grades in medical school and all of that. But for example, when I took the USMLE Step 1, my friend and I took a month. Like it was the summer between years in school, like 2nd and 3rd year. I can't remember exactly. And we took a full month off and studied 9 hours a day to a schedule. And then you get 1 shot at this test. And so you kind of want an objective measure for these hardcore residencies, well, any residency. So the fact that a surgery department would de-emphasize an objective measure to get into that residency, to me, is scary. What does this holistic approach mean? They already had a holistic approach. You already had to write essays. You already had to show that you volunteered. You already had to show what your interests were. You had to show all of this stuff. So now basically all they're saying is they're still going to look at the stuff, but they're not going to necessarily look at the test scores.
Well, I mean, that the only level playing field really are testing scores. That's the only colorblind litmus test to get in. And so I can tell you that if people of color believe that this is a way to get more people of color into a surgery residency, they've got another thing coming. Because look, if once you take out test scores, then you can buy your way into it. It's up for the highest bidder. So here's what I'm saying. If you've got 10 spots, right? And you know, there's no testing score, so there's no way to get in. That's when you start getting into fraud, and you get, hey, my dumb kid, I paid for them to go to medical school. They were going to go to our school. And now I'm going to pay you to get them to be a surgeon, right? That is how this nepotism happens. That's how, I mean, obviously unqualified people. But if you think that it's to let people of color in, see, that's the joke. Because those seats are up for sale. And I want to tell you what happens when you go into a surgical residency. Let's say you're in orthopedics, because that's what I'm the most comfortable with. There's a certain set of attendings, maybe 12 attendings, and maybe 12 different residents. So, you know, residents will actually, at a level 1 trauma center, perform a bulk of the operations. And I say a level 1 trauma center because anywhere there is one, which is UNC, I think Duke is as well. You've got Baptist, some of the other ones in the area. That is an orthopedic training program. It is there. You can have, as an attending, 3 different operating rooms going at the same time. And that's typically what they do, right? And they pop in. You don't want to know this stuff, but I'm just giving you a peek behind the
they crack down a little bit on it, but yeah, it's essentially.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And with ortho, you know, sometimes you have the rep in the room, usually, which is, you know, what I did. But a lot of times the guy's alone or girl's alone. So if you've got people that, and let's just say that, you know, the dad paid to get in, because that's what's going to happen, right? They don't have any skills or are not equipped. You're going to either have a patient in serious peril going in and out of those rooms, or you're going to not be able to have a level 1 trauma center because there's not, everyone will have to be watched. You know what I mean, Nancy? I mean, you can't have that.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. You're going to lose the independence because you have to, you have to watch everyone.
Yes, exactly.
And that's part of the reason. I mean, we could go, I mean, this isn't really for this discussion, but there is an issue now where residents are finishing not feeling prepared for the real world because they haven't had as much independence because they haven't been left alone as much. That's a different subject and different discussion. But yeah,
you don't want to leave these people alone. If there's you don't want to leave. What we're talking about is now that if you're going to say, hey, we're going to erase the standards,
right?
You damn sure don't want to leave them alone.
Yeah. There needs to be some objective standard. And I get that there are people who do terribly with, tests or whatever, but this is a known test. And part of it is the fortitude to be able to take the time to study for this test,
study the
to
discipline,
have the patience to do it, to have the discipline, and to do well on it, and to reward the people who do have that discipline and do well on it. And there are other things, like there are essays and everything. And if the person can't write or whatever, but has gazillion points on their USMLE, then maybe they're not the right fit because they might not be able to communicate. But you have to have some type of objective system. This is basically saying they're going to choose based on whatever subjective desire they have. So which whether that's
which could be money, that usually
money or quotas or whatever. And it's hammering at the meritocracy. This is an example of critical race theory because critical race theory does not believe in the meritocracy. So they're taking away meritocracy. They're taking away the students who studied hard, who did their due diligence, who did well under pressure of taking that test. They're taking that away from those people. So it's another attack on meritocracy.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can't do that in surgery. I'm sorry.
No.
It's a little bit like the airline pilot stuff, like
very scary. Please don't. Joe, I know that Joe is running fittingly in Johnson County, Joko, for school board. And is looking for ways to bring merit back. We want to bring in merit and morals back into our school. That's kind of what we want to do. But it's from the top down. And so we've seen the DPI say, hey, guess what? We're going to just fund like 5 people to go through the, to do the gifted program. Meanwhile, right, we want half of your students to qualify. And I think in Wake County, 25%, check this out, 25% of kids in Wake County have been identified as gifted and 40% are failing. So either that's complete BS, right? Either it's complete BS or I don't know, what could that be indicative of? That would just prove that teachers aren't effective, right? Or I don't know.
Yeah, but this is the problem in the slide you put up before with the white supremacy reference that from the Jedi toolkit. So what that article was characteristics of white supremacy from that dismantling racism activist website.
Oh, let me go back to that.
This will tie in with that admissions thing. So this person wrote up characteristics of white supremacy, which is reminiscent of what the Smithsonian had put out a couple summers ago with, being on time is whiteness. It's in that realm of whiteness.
If that's true, then I'm actually Black, which I have suspected for a while.
Yeah, it's so racist because so the list from this article, which is officially on the UNC Medicine.
This one?
No, I don't know if you have a screenshot of the article itself. It's the one that had the Jedi toolkit stuff.
Oh, okay. The Jedi. All right. Let me look for it, guys. All right.
That was it. Anyway, so this article that they had from dismantlingracism.org or whatever it was called was the list of characteristics for white supremacy. On that list was a sense of urgency. You're a white supremacist if you have a sense of urgency, which I can tell you in surgery, bet your butt you better have a sense of urgency.
Up. Yes.
Trauma red coming. Oh, let me just take my time. I wouldn't want to be a white supremacist. Let me just take my time getting. Another characteristic was perfectionism is a sign of white supremacy, according to UNC Medicine. Another characteristic was objectivity. Objectivity is a characteristic of white supremacy, according to this resource from UNC Diversity Medicine website. So if you have a sense of urgency, if you're objective, and if you're a perfectionist, you are a white supremacist.
Okay, so Amy, if you're still here, Tima Ocon is somebody we know very well. So look, critical race theory.
You do know her, right?
I do. Yes. Speaking of anti-Semitic, but yes, and so this is right. So we know this very well. We've seen this going around for a while, but to see it, and by the way, this stuff came up from a couple of freaking lunatics, right? In like 2001, and it was perfected in Chapel Hill and then done at a Jewish day school, actually, that I'm very well familiar with. So this stuff has been brewing for a long time. Amy, tell us what you really think.
I know.
Thank you. Yes.
If you put that slide back up there, you put the screenshot back up there for a minute. I mean, it causes me heartburn because you look at that headline of the article and then right above it says patient care, right? Like up at the top.
Oh my God.
Clicky UNC, and then click to patient care and outreach. And then here's this article on white supremacy culture, which is everything you want in a physician is apparently under white supremacy: urgency, perfectionism. I mean, so any Black doctors, if they're perfectionists, does that mean they're white supremacists as well?
Probably. I mean, yes. I mean,
I'm confused.
You know, the Black people that we work with on our team are called white supremacists, and I'm called an anti-Semite pretty much all the time, right? Because that's what crazy people will do. But yeah, I mean, look, let's look at how racist that is.
It's so racist.
That yes, of course. Just that Black Americans aren't on time. What is it? They're not perfectionists. They're
not objective. And that's another one I have an issue with, because the emphasis of implicit bias. You have to continually reevaluate your implicit biases. Okay, so what if you reevaluate them so much to the point where you become completely neutral and you have no biases? You're still a white supremacist because objectivity is white supremacy. So how do you negotiate? How does that work exactly? I don't understand.
You can't. So you want, so this is, so they want that. So
they want people who don't study for exams, mistake-ridden, late, biased surgeons, medical doctors. That's what they want.
So Black and brown people are not that. And that's what they want. Everyone. I'm not seeing how, but again, you can't figure this out. I'm not saying how that ends up as anything but racism, just personified. I'll tell you, we are living through the dumbest part of American history ever. This historical epoch will go down for the absolute worst, which is why we have to keep standing. I mean, education doesn't mean education anymore, Nancy, because that's white supremacy. It means to uneducate, right? And to go on, to your point, the shared narratives. So, and I want to tell you why people are doing that. When you want to counter program people, right? When you're talking about brainwashing or whatever you want to call it, you do not counter program with facts, right? You and I are what we're doing now. It doesn't work.
Right.
The only thing that works is a narrative. A narrative will counteract or brainwash someone. So if you want to brainwash someone to begin with, you do so with the narrative. 1619 is a narrative. It is there for the purposes of brainwashing, right? And so and what we're saying tonight is, look, in a place it should be fact driven. It should be only facts. We're getting into the narratives now. We're getting into the identity and the what do you call it? Intersectionality. We've been doing that in classes. We've been seeing math go to hell in a handbasket. STEM is gone by the wayside in favor of narratives.
Yeah. I mean, this makes me sick. And it makes me sick because personally, when I was there, you know, we all worked our butts off. The attendings were amazing. I didn't feel like anyone was sexist or any of that. If people yelled or got a little testy, it's because you're not sleeping and, someone's life is at stake, literally. So you're going to have that. And people worked really hard and they honestly had, I thought, the best intentions. And the training program was excellent when I was there. In terms of board pass rate, so if you become a surgeon, you have to take a written board, the day-long written board, and you also have to take an oral board where you have to fly to a city and go to these hotel rooms and be quizzed on the spot by 2 surgeons, and you have to pass 3 of the 4 rooms or something like that. So it's a major process. And UNC was actually, I don't know what they are now, but they were actually in the top 10 in the country residency board passing rates, higher than Duke. Like Duke was like 75%. UNC was like 90 something.
Wow.
I went to Duke undergrad, so it's okay. But I'm just saying, like, that residency program knew what it was doing. They were producing quality people who could operate, who could handle high stress situations, and were solid surgeons for the state of University of North Carolina. If they're all fixated on this crap now, I mean, you can't. I'm very concerned for the future of medicine. I'm concerned for the reputation of the good surgeons and doctors who are there at UNC. It's easy to take advantage of physicians because they work so hard. They're not necessarily paying attention to the everyday physicians are paying. Now, the DEI committee, I don't know, like those physicians should be paying attention if they're on that committee, but who knows? And it's a very sad state. And this is absolutely critical race theory. And if they try to tell you otherwise, they're full of poo. I hate it. And this is blatantly racist. I mean, this is everything you're trained to be against. You're trained as a surgeon or trained as a doctor to look at things objectively, to take into account the context of the situation, to try to understand what's going on in the patient's life, to make the best decisions you possibly can, and to use all the resources you have available, and to do no harm. These people are bringing in harm by bringing in these dangerous ideologies that they don't really know a whole lot about, and that they're certainly not opening up to debate. I have offered 4 times.
They don't want that.
Dr. Wold. I said, I have presentations ready. I have materials, all this stuff. I'm happy to sit down and talk to you. Radio silence, nothing. So how is that inclusive exactly? I wonder. And it is the antithesis to what medicine is supposed to be. And this isn't to say that you can't look at disparities, or you can't look at differences, or you can't examine instances of racism and all of that, or policies that might lead to, what that might be racist or what. This isn't to say that, but this is saying this is a radical take that is racist. You're introducing racism 100%. Into the system, and you're removing the ability of physicians to speak freely, and you're indoctrinating them. And not allowing for the open debate they say they have. And these doctors are taking on roles that they have nothing to do with for the state. Now, again, in private practice, if they want to put in the work to build a practice, to take all that call, to build up the patient base, to pay their own overhead and all of that stuff, and then use politics as a part of that marketing, go for it. But this is a tax-funded institution, and as such, it should absolutely be neutral.
Well, yeah, I mean, to your point, this is this is taxpayer funded. This is, and again, it's a training center. People come from state after state. I mean, Virginia and South Carolina. I mean, this is like a premier training center. And it's something that, look, I mean, you pointed this out. A shining gem is what UNC used to be. A shining gem is what every training center needs to be. And this is, again, putting the proverbial thumb in the eye of almost everybody that you serve. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Amy, don't give any money to them. Please give us. We're trying to raise some money before the end of the year. You know that you can send it to Pen and Shield /Education First Alliance.
UNC
no, they don't need it. They clearly don't give a damn. They just don't. So what we're seeing here, guys, just to wrap it up, is cross-pollination from the education to the healthcare to the education medication. It has merged. Nancy, you made a great point. The last thing we want is this transgender bullcrap legitimized as a public health matter by UNC. It seems like that's what they are either trying to do, not trying to do. I don't know, but it is
the
what
activist portion of it. To turn it into an activist thing is just, I mean, treat everyone equally, treat everyone with respect. The activist stuff needs to stop.
Bottom line. Yeah. Bottom line. And so we wanted to keep you informed today of what was going on. Epic Times did a masterful job.
Yeah. I didn't even get to say.
Yeah. Epic Times did a story and just kind of followed, you know, what was going on with Nancy and what they put out there. And, you know, to retrain the medical doctor. Look, I mean, the Holocaust began with doctors and nurses, people. Let's not forget that. Don't ever forget that. And so when you got, again, institutionalized revolutionary zeal, we're seeing it in the military, we're seeing it in the schools, we're seeing that now in healthcare. So, you know, we have got to absolutely stand up and speak out at every chance that we get. As we say, as we've been doing, you did it, Nancy. Masterful job. I agree. And so we're going to keep on this. Guys, we are maybe not next week because I think a lot of people are going to be like taking a break. And at some point we need to take a break, right?
Some genderbread men.
Wait, I'm just making some downstairs for the teachers. So what we're going to do is go over the psychiatric plan and the training inside of schools, because that will scare the bejeebers of you. But again, we have a responsibility to act here. Mm-hmm. So, all right, guys, well, have a wonderful night. And I will see you next week. Bye, guys.